Hey, what's going on, people? It's your boy Brown Baldy here yet again, coming into a new reaction to The Critical Drinker. He made a very recent video, Crash and Burn Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That's very interesting because for the past few years, I have been hearing through the grapevine. I haven't really kept up with celebrity stuff like that. That's not really my thing, but I do find it entertaining. And for what I've heard about The Rock so far, he hasn't been doing... I mean, he's doing well. The guy's a celebrity, for crying out loud. Great actor, all that stuff. His success and accomplishments are unquestionable. But recently, I've been hearing a lot of stuff about his character per se. The only thing that comes to mind right now would be perhaps a interview he had with Joe Rogan. Not to mention the whole what's it called? In-N-Out Burger thing. That apparently he lied about it a few times. But I'm pretty sure there's more to it. I know there was a little bit of a controversy between him and Vin Diesel. I'm not sure if he's going to talk about that. But anyways, I can speculate what this video is going to be about. Or I could just put it. Boom. And here we are. Critical Drinker. Don't forget to go to his channel. Subscribe to him. This is his video. I am Simply Reactive. So let's go right here. Crash and Burn. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
One thing I've learned from this series is that just like people, Hollywood meltdowns come in all different shapes and sizes. On the one hand, there's the spectacular implosions of Joss Whedon and Brie Larson, who reached the height of fame and success only to fall from grace in dramatic fashion. On the other hand, there's the Rachel Zeglers of the world, whose egos far outshine their talents and accomplishments, killing their careers before they even get off the ground. But there's another kind of crash and burn, dear viewer, a kind of slow-motion train wreck where you can see the pieces falling off even as it keeps ploughing forwards until finally the whole thing derails and comes crashing to a halt. Which brings me neatly along to the story of Dwayne Douglas Johnson, better known...
You know, like, I gotta say real quick before he continues, I am a fan of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I think he's done great work. He's a great actor. I mean, I loved him back as The Rock. I mean, who didn't? And that's what really got him into Hollywood and everything. As an actor, I've loved him. Can people say he's a one-trick pony? Perhaps, but he's entertaining. At least he used to be. I haven't really kept up with him lately. I know he has an upcoming movie where he plays a fighter. I forgot the name, but I did a trailer reaction to it. What's it called? Yeah, like, how can I say it? He did he has kind of not been as popular as he used to be. And I imagine it's for a lot of reasons, but either way.
Known as The Rock, a man who once dominated the box office with the same intensity as he ruled the wrestling ring, possibly the biggest and most marketable celebrity on the planet, who seemed to be everywhere, doing everything and beloved by everyone. A man whose constantly upbeat, larger-than-life persona masked a hidden world of greed, ego, lies and hubris. A man so addicted to success and fame that it ended up consuming him. A man for whom the world itself was simply not enough. So join me for another episode of Crash and Burn as I tell you the Dwayne Johnson story. Dwayne Douglas Johnson was born in California in 1972, the son of wrestling legend Rocky Johnson. And he wasn't the only wrestler in the family. His uncle, his adopted grandfather, and even his grandmother were all in the business, and it seemed like Dwayne was destined to follow them. He had different ideas though, and got into pro football instead. I mean, the guy was an absolute fucking unit, 6'5" and 250 pounds at like 18 years old, so who can blame him? He was a good athlete for sure, but he never quite reached the big time in football and finally got cut loose after 4 years in the sport. With no high school qualifications and not many other options, he turned instead to wrestling, used his family connections to fast track his way into the business, and made his debut in the WWE the following year, wrestling under the name Rocky Maivia. And on paper at least it seemed like a great idea. His dad had been a fan favourite, he was young and athletic, and he was wrestling as a babyface, the kind of guy you're normally supposed to cheer for. Instead it turned into a fucking disaster. The fans could smell a manufactured star a mile away, they hated his generic good guy persona, and the harder the WWE tried to push him, the more they rebelled against him. And when Dwayne was sidelined with a knee injury, it seemed like his wrestling career was over. Instead, he came back a few months later with a completely different personality, playing a cocky, arrogant heel, calling himself The Rock.
And the rest is history. The Rock was... That guy was the shit. He's still the shit. I mean, he's still the man, but damn. Shout out to anybody who was there as a kid watching this guy just being a badass. Good times, good times. The Rock, Stone Cold, The Undertaker, Kane, like Kurt Angle, like Triple H. I mean, the list goes on. The glory days, the golden age, at least my golden age when I was younger. Whew. Shawn Michaels, God forbid, damn.
Shit-talked everyone around him, constantly referred to himself in the third person, and generally acted like he didn't give a shit anymore. It was an inspired decision and an instant hit, tapping into the Attitude Era that was just kicking off at the time, and in the space of a few months he went from one of the most hated wrestlers in the business to one of its most iconic superstars. He seemed to have a keen sense of what people wanted from him and the ability to reshape his persona to suit it. Keep that in mind, dear viewer, because it'll be important later. Things were going great in the WWE, but Dwayne's aspirations extended way beyond the wrestling ring. Just like Hulk Hogan before him, he wanted to get into the movie business, and after playing the bad guy in 2001's The Mummy Returns, he landed his first lead role in the spin-off The Scorpion King. Dwayne turned out to be a natural on the big screen.
Hey, that movie was good. It was actually quite good. To this day, I still enjoy it. He did a good job, you know. You couldn't just help but be impressed. I don't know how good of an actor he actually is. I mean, not entirely surprised for those of you who saw him back when he was in wrestling, that guy he could just demand the attention of a crowd, dude. The charisma was it was unmatched. Like very few could match him. The only other person would be Stone Cold, honestly.
And the movie would go on to make $180 million worldwide. Not bad for a first-time actor. Unfortunately, this success wouldn't last. The next few years saw his career seesaw all over the place, doing everything from action to comedy, sports biopics to thrillers, and even Disney movies. None of it was really working though. Most of his projects either flopped or barely broke even. Just like his early wrestling career, he couldn't quite find the persona that worked for him. Was he supposed to be a tough, no-nonsense hard man, a family-friendly comedy actor, a commercial action star, a villain, a hero? Well, the answer finally came in.
Well, I don't know, man. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he kept getting roles. I mean, could it have been that bad? I actually enjoyed the multifaceted, era of him. I enjoyed almost every movie he was pretty good at. I know one where it's he's very underrated. His performance was the movie Snitch. He did a really good job there.
2011, when he joined the Fast and the Furious franchise, which itself was going through a bit of a redemption arc after struggling for years to figure out what it was supposed to be. His character, Luke Hobbs, was an instant hit with fans, tapping into the same charismatic anti-hero persona that had made The Rock so popular in wrestling a decade earlier. From then on, the Dwayne Johnson hype train was finally running at full speed, and a wave of big-budget, highly successful action movies followed. For years, Hollywood producers had been looking for the next Arnold Schwarzenegger, the next definitive action star who would shape a whole generation of movies, and in Dwayne Johnson, it seemed they'd finally found what they were looking for. He was big and muscly, he was charismatic, he was marketable, he could navigate interviews and film junkets like a seasoned pro, he was cool enough to appeal to adults, but clean-cut and inoffensive enough to appeal to kids and families. He was somehow able to be everything to everyone and make it look easy. If Disney somehow made movie stars instead of movies, Dwayne Johnson is pretty much what they would churn out, and pretty soon, the fucking guy was literally everywhere. Movies, commercials, brand deals, wrestling appearances. He was always there with a tailor-made suit and $1 million smile, always excited to promote his next big project, always ready with some inspiring words, always waiting to sell you something. But problems were afoot, dear viewer. The first signs of trouble came with rumours about his behaviour on the Fast and the Furious movies. By all accounts, he was a dominant presence on set, and not in a good way. He wasted no time reshaping the movies to benefit himself, pushing for more lines and more screen time for his own character. He apparently had a clause in his contract that says he couldn't lose a fight, and he...
That right there is an issue, and I believe it's not just him, also Vin Diesel, but at the very least Vin Diesel has the Fast and Furious franchise that he can always relax on. So many damn movies, he's kind of always the main star. That's his thing, and because it was his thing, I think that's where it really started, the whole rivalry between him and Vin Diesel. But that whole thing where you can't lose a fight, I think that was very stupid, because I think that also extends to everything. If you always want to be the hero, it's hard to take you seriously, man. Sometimes you gotta venture out. You gotta be the loser. You gotta be the weird one. That's the point of being an actor, and he has the ability to do it, which makes the whole thing much more sadder. But anyways,
even got into a public feud with Vin Diesel and accused him of being lazy, entitled, and a complete pussy to work with. Naturally, this didn't gel too well with his smiling, easygoing public persona, and when he started taking heat for this post, he soon deleted it. Keep that one in mind too, because the theme of Dwayne retreating from a position the moment he senses it could harm his image would become a bit of a theme in the years ahead. The idea of him being an asshole on set would really come up during the filming of Red 1, where apparently he'd routinely show up late for filming with no explanation or apology. And I don't just mean 30 or 40 minutes late, I mean 7 or 8 hours. Jesus, that's basically an entire working day for normal people. These constant delays pushed back the schedule by weeks and added about $50 million to the film's budget. The weirdest thing about all this though was the piss story. Rather than just going to the bathroom to take a leak like a normal person, Dwayne insisted on pissing into plastic bottles right there on set and handing them off to the crew to deal with.
That's fucked up.
Like, imagine that for a second. Imagine it's your first time on a film set, you're all excited about being part of the magic of movie making, and instead you find yourself hauling a leaky bottle filled with some asshole's urine. But that was only the beginning of Dwayne's problems. People were beginning to notice things about all those big budget action movies he'd been churning out over the years. He was basically playing the same fucking character in everything he did. Same personality, same general character arc, even the same clothes half the time. His movies were starting to be seen as the McDonald's Happy Meals of the film world, experienced by millions of people worldwide but completely homogenous and forgettable. What had started out as charming and marketable was quickly becoming tiresome and predictable. The other thing people were realizing about Dwayne was that he lies. A lot. Often about the weirdest fucking things, like how many calories he eats per day, or claiming that he was visiting In-N-Out Burger for the first time. 3 different times. Like, why would you even make something like that up in the first place? Who even gives a shit if you go to a burger restaurant? On the subject of stuff that Dwayne was putting into his body though, people were also starting to get a bit suspicious about his physique. Despite the fact that he was hurtling towards 50, he seemed to be getting bigger and more muscular with each passing year, and well, people were not buying it anymore. Allegations of steroid abuse were running wild, and the more he tried to play it down, the more they seemed to ramp up. Now, remember what I told you about Dwayne tailoring his persona to match the situation? That kind of thing definitely worked in the early days of his career when nobody was around to fact check him, but in the days of the internet and social media, well, people were beginning to realise that instead of having his own opinions about stuff, he basically just said whatever he thought people wanted to hear. And if he got any kind of pushback, he'd immediately fold like a house of cards and backtrack. The worst example was probably his Joe Rogan interview in 2023, where he basically spent 3 hours giving evasive answers and reflecting the questions back at him. It was like Dwayne was the one doing the fucking interviewing, and it all fed into the public perception that nothing about the guy was real.
I gotta say, for what I've learned, and it's happened before, kind of like the Oprah effect, where like if you go to Oprah for one time, for whatever the reason, you can get pretty famous and just kind of like skyrocket off that shit. Joe Rogan's the opposite. I mean, if you got, because Joe Rogan's interviews, they can last for hours, and it's gonna be a lot of questions, sometimes personal, and if you're not genuine, it's gonna show. And then a lot of people, I can't think of anything immediate at the moment, but he's not the first one to suffer for going to the Joe Rogan interview, because it makes you look bad, because people want authenticity, and unfortunately The Rock is not that way. And you know, and I don't want to be too hard on the guy. You know, none of us know what we'll do or what it takes to be at the top. You know, sometimes you want to protect that image, but you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful, because people nowadays, and we live in a time where people are just tired of bullshit, and we want something real. And if you can't provide that, it's just tough. It's just tough. I do not want to be too hard on The Rock, because none of us know what we're gonna do. You know, we all want to say, "Oh, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll be that way." You know, I'm not defending the guy. I'm just saying that I think the way he handled it was probably more human than we give him credit for. Sometimes we want to just always be successful, you know, be careful with the things we do, because like it's just messed up, but it's just what I think. If you have a difference of opinion, by all means, let me know in the comment section.
It's more like a brand than a person. His every public appearance and sentiment carefully stage managed for maximum financial impact. All was not well on the wrestling side of things either. See, ever since his jump to Hollywood, Dwayne had kept one foot in the wrestling business as a kind of part-time superstar. Anytime one of his movies flopped or he needed a bit of a career boost, he'd retreat back to the WWE for another run, make a ton of money, and then leave again. That strategy had been working pretty well until he showed up in 2024 and shoved his way into the middle of a long-running feud between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. The fan backlash was so extreme that the WWE actually had to rewrite the whole storyline and put Cody back in center stage where he belongs. In typical fashion, Dwayne would later claim that the whole thing was part of a grand plan to make Cody even more popular.
Yeah, I think I can smell shite.
Fuck off, Dwayne. Everyone could see him for exactly what he was now, an aging superstar trying to hold on to the spotlight beyond his time, even if it meant screwing over younger and more deserving people. The biggest disaster though was 2022's Black Adam, which was supposed to be Dwayne's big entry into the superhero genre. He'd made no secret of the fact that he was taking control of the DCEU and reshaping it with himself at the centre, that he was going to do for DC what he'd done for the Fast and the Furious franchise and rehabilitate it.
Yes, I can definitely smell shite.
Well, that didn't work. The movie flopped big time and Black Adam was quickly buried along with the rest of the DCEU. The Rock's big push into the superhero genre was over before it even began. But that didn't stop Dwayne from desperately trying to cope about it, claiming that the movie was actually a success if you looked at it the right way.
Really?
Yeah, sure, buddy. Losing hundreds of millions of dollars and nuking an entire franchise is a pretty loose definition of success.
How do you call it? I'm not the biggest analyst when it comes to movies. I've seen the movie, it wasn't that bad. It's not rewatchable though. Like, there's some moments where you appreciate. I do appreciate they made him, willing to kill, all that stuff. It's just that there was so much missing. And the whole notion that, because I know the whole thing that they want to bring back Henry Cavill as Superman, that was pretty cool, don't get me wrong, but how is that going to work eventually? Because as far as we're concerned, he's not allowed to lose. Like, I don't know, man. And it's ego, it's, narcissism, you want to be the number one at all times. It doesn't work that way. Everyone has their time, and maybe I'm wrong, but if there's a moment where you are the shit, that's hell of an accomplishment, because not everybody, most people don't even get to be that. But some people, unfortunately, he couldn't let go of it. He always wants to be the man, and it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you're on someone else's show, and you do your best to support, But whatever.
Yes. And so we find ourselves in the year of our Lord 2025, where Dwayne Johnson has gone from the king of the Hollywood box office to a star in decline and a cautionary tale. He really is a perfect example of having too much of a good thing, that trying to please everyone ultimately ends up satisfying no one, and at the end of the day, all the fame and success in the world is no substitute for authenticity. I don't think he's a bad guy necessarily, and he's clearly done a lot of good things with his life and career. He just became so intoxicated by his larger-than-life persona and his desperate need to appeal to absolutely everyone that in the end it kind of consumed him. So what's next for The Rock? Is he going to bounce back, pivot and find a new path to success, or fade away into movie obscurity? Well, his upcoming film The Smashing Machine seems to signal a move away from generic big-budget action slop and maybe a willingness to take on more challenging roles that play against type, so who knows? The world does love a good redemption arc, and I don't think he's burned all of his bridges with audiences yet. But if there's one thing to take away from all this, perhaps it's time for him to stop being The Rock and finally start being Dwayne Johnson. If he can do that, perhaps there's still a way back for him.
Yeah, honestly.
Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Okay, so that was the Critical Drinker, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Crash and Burn. That was a good video. Like I said, I don't want The Rock to fail. I really don't. I want him to come back. I have some high hopes for the Smashing Machine, because that's how I think, Everybody wants to kind of just point the fingers and say you should have, you could have, whatever. But if you just take a moment to just really think to yourself, would I really do the things that I say I would do? Like, really think about what you would do if you're in that position. I'm not trying to excuse the guy. I'm just saying, would any of us fare any better? There's a show, I haven't seen the whole show, but I think it's called Landman. There's a scene where one of the main characters is talking to an old man. He's trying to start his own landman business, trying to buy land to lease the mineral rights to pump oil and stuff. And he's talking to the old man, and this kid is very honorable, But the old man tells him, because I remember he's telling him, you might start getting greedy, whatever. And the young guy was like, money's never been a factor. You say that right now, kid. Wait till you make some. And that's true, man. And we all wanna think that we're gonna be noble, but what happens when we actually get that big break and we make a lot of money? Are we really gonna be that noble? Some of us do, obviously. I'm not saying we don't, but everybody thinks they're noble until they actually make that money. But either way, that's just my opinion. I know there's some people that are very, very good. But sometimes we're human and we mess up. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. And I really hope that Dwayne Johnson bounces back, man. Because he's a good actor. He really, really is. But anyways, hey God, let me know what you think. If you have a difference of opinion, by all means, let me know in the comment section. I'm always willing to listen to a different perspective. With that being said, if you like my reaction, if you have it in you, please do me a favor. Give me a like and subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. How about you, bro? This is your boy, Brown Baldy. Thank you so much for joining me. And y'all have a good rest of your day. And you all take care.